Welcome, everybody. My name is Professor Felix Pereiro, and I welcome you to the very first in a long series called Innovation Speakers Series. So welcome. Most people on the audience are administrators. I'd like to see that, and also many of the students from Grand Rapids Community College. So again, welcome to the first in a long speaker series on the topic, very important topic of innovation. Our first speaker today comes from the Amway Corporation. His name is Mr. Seth Starner. He has been at Amway for 9 years and currently holds the position of Innovation Manager. He has worked in all over the world, especially in Africa, for them on special innovation projects, and currently is working on projects in Southeast Asia. And he is a graduate of the University of Michigan and currently is doing his graduate work at the Institute of Design in Chicago. So let's please give him a warm welcome, Mr. Seth Starner.
So I think I'd rather be down there, but I'll do slides as we go here. So first of all, I should say, I went here. I went to the community college a long time ago, well before this building ever existed. It's a great institution, and I don't know, let's see, what did I do? I did calculus here, pre-calc, that kind of fun stuff. I'm sure things you all are enjoying. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was, or kind of what I've been asked to talk about, is just skills for the future. What is innovation requiring of you as you move forward and start heading out into the job force and want to work in the innovation space, which could practically be anything. To me, I want to back up a little and just say that innovation for me is finding value and creating value for customers and for the company. So you can create a great project, and I'll show you one that I've spent a lot of time on, or a little bit of one I've spent a long time on. And it was pretty easy to create value for the customer, but we had to show that we had to create profits for the organization. So if you can do both, in my mind, you're an innovator. You've crossed that bridge and brought both something of value to the customer and something of profitable to the organization. So I kind of like this screen. It was the why am I here screen. It's interesting to think about all the skills that you're learning in school. And I'm a strong supporter of learning good math skills. You have to speak at least one language well, preferably 2 or more. You have to have a good understanding of basic skills, but I'm going to show you some other skills that I think you really need to have to be successful in the next 20 years of your career. So when I say you should have this, it's not in exclusion of all the things you're probably already learning or have already learned. So in addition to. So I didn't realize this 4 years ago when I took this position that I would be trying to get our company unstuck from the mud. I found myself teaching innovation, and I had no intention of ever doing that. Half of my responsibility is to lead the company into a culture of innovation, which means the organization is asking me to teach very skilled people, people who've been there longer than me, in many cases smarter than me, some different skills. And that's been a very interesting situation. You're here because you want to learn and you have ideas of what you're going to do with that. Imagine being in a company for 20 years and being told, yeah, you got to learn some new skills. What, I already know how to do my job. Yeah, well, the company is profitable and we're doing great, but we need other skills to hit the margins and to hit the goals that we have, and we're finding that in the company we don't have it. So there's a group of us who are out there not only trying to do projects, but also teach these different skills of innovation. So in a sense, I'm in an interesting position being a teacher and never having planned to be one. I think the biggest challenge we have is thinking holistically. I think there's a lot of people out there who say, I'm going to specialize. I'm going to specialize in finance, I'm going to specialize in marketing, I'm going to specialize in taxes, whatever. And Peter Drucker, may have run across in your studies, a well-known business thinker, there are only business problems. You need to use your whole mind to solve business problems. And so I actually see specialties as kind of a hindrance, or not a hindrance. You need to have specialized skills, but you also need to have the ability to think broadly. And so when we're hiring people, we look for the T. You got a lot of depth in something. Mine happens to be in consumer insights. I spent a long time doing pollster projects, market research, whatever you want to call it, ethnographies. So that's my expertise. But I'm looking for people who have breadth, people who can imagine something different, who can take a project and pick it up and run with it and do something with it. Get it to a final place where at least you can go and present it and say, this is what my innovation is. This is how it's going to work. And this is my imagination to reality. So we're always looking for the T structure. And everyone we hire into our department, and actually now we've kind of pushed into HR, is we're looking for that ability. It's great that you're a specialist, but can you do this? Can you think bigger than just this? Because we really don't need just this anymore. You need to be able to cover the full spectrum of business problems. And the business problems that we're encountering these days are a heck of a lot more complex. You know, the last 50 years for Amway, they've expanded geographically into over 75 countries. That strategy is more or less done. Now we have to come up with a new one. This is the point where many companies can stall, and it's a very difficult problem. So how do we create more value? How do we get growth? A lot of established companies, a lot of new companies are all facing that problem. So you need to have a holistic, a bigger mind, thinking about all the parts. And going back to this slide, it's right and left, right? Linear is great. Deduction, induction. I know how to solve a problem. I see white things falling down from the sky. It's cold. It's probably snow. Great. You know how to use logic. But there's another sort of logic, and I think this is the logic that we miss out a lot on, and it's abduction. It's those leaps of thinking. You hear leaps of faith. It's not faith. I've thought it through. I'm willing to make a leap of thinking, and that's another type of logic, and I think it's a logic that's really missing both in academic situations but also in the business world, and it's desperately needed. And those people who can make those leaps, I think, are called visionaries, because we don't really know how to explain how they come up with these ideas. I think Steve Jobs is a visionary. No, he can make some really good leaps of thinking. He's thought it through, and then he concludes. It's not induction, it's not deduction, it's another type of thinking. It's just as logical, though. So I think the biggest thing, number one thing that we hire for is curiosity. This is part of my year this year. So I started in Brazil, spent some time in Africa, was in Korea over the summer, and I just got home from Malaysia. And that was to understand how all these different people live. If you're not curious about other people, I don't know how you're going to be an innovator, seriously. If you don't have a genuine interest in trying to figure out problems for people beyond yourself, there are other jobs for you, I guess. Trying to be positive. But it'd be very hard to be an innovator. So this is a colleague of mine in West Africa, and we're trying to understand how people think about products. In this case, it happened to be some personal care and home care products that we happen to sell a lot of. And just how, these two women maybe make $2 or $3 a day. So what's their reality? How could I possibly make a business model that could satisfy these women so that they can buy products that are necessary for their life and make a profit as a company? And that was actually what I spent 2 years of my life trying to figure out, and currently that project's in pilot, so we're on our way. So there are solutions, but it was the ability to have the imagination to say, yeah, I think we can figure that out. Deduction, all the rest of the companies out there, for the most part, are saying, you know what, they're too poor. These aren't customers. They need to be serviced by nonprofits. They have money. It's in little tiny bits. And they need things, and they also need businesses. So those were the three things that we said, you know what, we can solve those three things and put it together. Working on the similar issues in Brazil. Korea, totally different. high-end market, the best cosmetic and skincare market in the world is Korea. They have even more advanced than Japan. So there we're looking at really high-end market. Malaysia is actually looking at the middle of the market, saying, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't want to rush ahead, but I had a quick question. How do you create a demand for a market that's not even existing? I mean, if they don't have money or they don't have the capital to buy from you, how do you, if you feel that there is a demand or a market there, how do you create it?
So they do make money. Not a lot, not compared to what we're used to, but they do make money. And they have some amazing money strategies for managing it. So I can't afford to buy, a large 400 milliliter bottle of shampoo. These women will never buy that. But if you package it so it costs 30 cents and it's a week's worth of product, and they happen to have 30 cents that week, which many of them do, they'll buy shampoo. And they'll enjoy it because you're competing against nothing. There is no other competitor. So it's a great market. And they want the same things you and I want, as far as live a good life, feel clean, stay clean, have a clean home, have energy, have good nutrition, look nice. So it's just finding a way to understand their income and how their money comes in, and finding a way to meet that need for the amount of money that they have. The other thing that we added to that is we actually created a business opportunity for them. So we found a way for them to make money and sell to their peers. So we added a third component that I think most companies wouldn't. But I can get a little more into that in a minute. So this is downtown Malaysia. This is Malaysia's Malays, Chinese, Indians. So this is the Indian Kentucky Fried Chicken. I thought it was pretty funny. Nice colors. You never see that here. Kentucky Fried Chicken is huge in Malaysia, and it serves a very interesting demographic. It's a lower middle class demographic, loves fried chicken. Same is true in South Africa. Same is true in parts of South America. So Kentucky Fried Chicken has found a way to service a market and go international, and it's the American of American brands, right? I mean, I can be more American than Kentucky Fried Chicken. So anyway, you have to have empathy. You have to be able to open yourself up to totally different cultures and try to understand, and that is key. If you are not willing to understand, these are farmers out in the middle of northern Brazil. They also make money. They make about $7,500 a year. They have relatively nice houses, starting to buy some consumer goods. Great market. There's a lot of them. People who make $2, $3 or less a day equal 4 billion people in the world. There's what, 6.5 billion? So it's a heck of a market. So if you can figure it out, there's a great way for your company to grow. And that's where one of the places I've spent a lot of time. So this is one of the teams actually doing an activity that we put together. Collaboration, teamwork. I think your generation's better at it than mine or the boomers, frankly, so maybe I'm already talking to the converted. Collaboration is key. No single person has the best idea, but crowdsourcing, or in this case just teamwork, is the best way to get new ideas and to grow those ideas. So I may have an idea, someone else comes to the table. I bet you, $1 billion idea lays in this room. I don't have it, you don't have it, but if we got together and thought about it, we could come up with something. We all have pieces of it. And if you're not willing to reach out into your team and leverage the abilities they have, you're not going to get very far. Design and coming up with innovative things is not some genius with a light bulb, in my opinion. It happens occasionally. But even people like Edison, he had a whole team that he worked with to come up with these amazing ideas, such as the light bulb and so on. So it's about teamwork and collaboration. It's also about humbleness. I don't know if you know the Chinese adage of, or hell, if you've ever watched Kung Fu, the show. The beginning is of this kid who's trying to get this teacher to teach him, and every time he asks a question, the kid has full of answers because he thinks he has to answer the teacher. But really what the teacher is looking for is to say, is your cup empty enough for me to teach you. And that's about going out and letting the consumer teach you, or whoever your customer is, and to be humble enough to say, you know what, I probably don't know the answer. In fact, every project I start, I know I don't know the answer. And I also know the company doesn't know the answer, or they wouldn't be asking. So if you're not humble enough to empty your cup and fill it with insights, understanding, again, you're going to have a challenge in trying to be an innovator. I think especially now, the last 3 years have certainly added to that in this country. Ambiguity. You're going to go out into the workplace, I don't care where you go, and there's just going to be a lot of ambiguity. It's going to be very tough to know exactly what the future is. And I think in the past, a lot of the school MBAs teach, you just have to have a strategy. Once you get that strategy figured out, you apply that strategy and you will win. Again, I'd say in this new era of ambiguity, that's not true. You always have to be thinking about your strategy and changing it and adapting it. I think it was MacArthur who said, I hate plans. Plans are useless, but planning is essential. If you're not taking the time to think things through, to work through the foggy ambiguity of the world, you're probably not going to get anywhere. But you have to be able to adapt and deal with ambiguity. All the projects that I'm halfway through the Southeast Asia project, I still don't know what the answer is. And I have to report out in 2 months. I have a good idea of what some of the answers might be. But being comfortable with that ambiguity and knowing that you can get through it is key. So along with ambiguity comes complexity. In fact, they're directly related. And the world is very complex, and is much more complex than even when I was in high school or in college. I'm continually amazed at how interconnected and all the things that are linking our worlds, our countries, our lives together. And managing that and being comfortable with that is very difficult. A lot of people just want to take what exists and make a linear path to the next thing. The true innovator looks at the complexity and revels in it and says, you know what? I can handle this. I can handle all these different things. I just need to let it sit. So another part of complexity is patience. Letting all those things sit, and I can bring them together if I just take the time to think it through and make those leaps of thinking and deal with the ambiguity and be empathetic and be open to the fact that you can do it. I'm trying to link these all together. So another part of complexity in dealing with all that is abstraction. This is out of a book from about 1920, and it just talks about, well, what is abstraction? Abstraction is very difficult for a lot of people, business world and otherwise. And to be able to go from the cow to the word wealth and understand that cows, one way you could abstract that would be as an asset, as a farm asset, as an asset, and just as wealth. And so a lot of the issues that we were dealing with in Africa needed to be abstracted. Here's how someone's behaving. Here's a thing that they're doing. What does it mean? How does that fit into a bigger set of considerations? So here's a good one. I assumed when we created this business model in Africa that they wanted to be paid every day. You make $2 or $3 a day, you figure, I want to get paid. What I didn't understand was status. And so after a couple months of running this test, the women kept coming to me and saying, I don't know if I'm making money in this, and I'm looking, it's like, well, let's see, you sold this whole basket of products. Yeah, you probably made at least $10 today, but they couldn't, and these women are not dumb, but they have not had a lot of access to education, so they couldn't keep track of that money, and they didn't quite know if they were making money or not. And they said, can you just give us a check every 30 days? I'm thinking, really? You want to wait 30 days to get all that money, and you only make $2 a day? Okay, I got to figure out why you're saying this, because I don't get this. And so it took some time to kind of delve into that. It turns out to get a paycheck every 30 days is a status symbol. It means you're employed by a big company. And for them to be able to have a check and to go and deposit it at a bank, which for many of them was the first time they'd ever put money into the bank, it was a huge status thing for them, and it made them feel really good. It also made them feel really good about our brand, and our company and what they were doing with us. So I was very excited for them. But I didn't understand it, so it took some time to kind of delve down. So status is kind of this abstract thing here, and here's $2 a day, and you're making money here bit by bit, pulling it all together, 30 days. Now I understand. So it's being able to abstract things and understand things at different levels. So this is my world last week. And every one, you'll see these blue lines, every one of these is an interview that we did. Half were in the US, half were in Malaysia. And what we were trying to do is synthesize all that data down into some very simple things, because I have to take all of that information and give pretty much a one-page explanation to management. Should we go in this market or not? But to do all that work, actually there's more boards over here but you can't see, took all this information and we're starting to work it down. So these are insights that we have observed across all of these. And that's synthesizing data. And it's the ability to take all these disparate parts and put it together. And having the patience and the discipline to do that. Key skill, I gotta tell you, of the one skill that I do not see in corporate America is this. No one wants to take the time. It drives me crazy. So you're gonna see some frustration here. It drives me crazy because people will get all of this data and take a surface look at it and say, oh yeah, I got it. We're gonna do this. Most of the time, the simplest answer is what your competitor could probably figure out too. If you're gonna come up with a really good answer, you gotta really delve deep into the data, abstract it, synthesize it, and come up with something new. You know, everyone says, I hate to use Apple as an example because it's the poster child for innovation, but I'm going to. It wasn't the iPod or even the iPhone that was of any use. Great invention, great design, I'm not gonna knock it. But where Steve Jobs and Apple really took things is they created a platform. They went and tried to understand with the original iPod, people want to use music better. They want music in their lives. They could have just made another MP3 player and said, yep, that's it, done, we'll compete. But instead they went and said, how can we help people think about music and have music and enjoy music in their lives? And so they created iTunes. To me, when I think about Apple, their innovation, where they're making their money, isn't on the hardware, it's on that platform. 30 points on every song, every movie, everything that's sold that isn't offered free on that site goes to Apple. They hit, what, 10 million, or was it 10 million downloads? It may have been 10 billion. I think it was something ridiculous a couple days ago. And I was thinking, wow, 30% on that. Who cares about MP3 players? That's not where they make their money. So anyway, to get there, you really have to be able to synthesize. And that's one example of how Apple did a great job of doing that. And there's a flattering picture of me. So we're taking this, this data, and one of the ways that we boil it all down for management is to draw it out, visualize it. Because I don't know about you, but there's so much to read these days. I mean, there's just email, there's magazines, there's on the iPad you got all these options with newspapers and things. I read constantly. And so do the executives that we present to. You've got 30 minutes to make an impression on them. Should I be listening to this guy or not? Actually, probably have about 2 minutes to really make that first impression. And I'll tell you, my experience is visualizing it for them starts a conversation. Wait, I don't understand. So one of the things we're looking at is a lot of people who are trying to start small businesses get a business loan. But what if you loan them a business? Well, that's totally different, right? That's a whole different set of things that I would do to make that happen. And just to visualize that, it actually happened to me. I was showing these boards to number 3 in the company. He's like, wow, you know, if you just said that to me, if you'd just written that out, I wouldn't have gotten it. But I see it. This is cool. What does this mean, Seth? Of course, I'm like, well, it could mean a bunch of things. But the fact that it was visual, so that's one way we synthesize things, is to make it visual. Yeah, there are words here, but it's represented visually. And I think, not everyone, but there's a lot of people, including myself, who are very visual. And that is one way to succeed, I think, in the future. Is a lot of things are going to have to be visualized. You're talking to a person who can make stick figures, so there are people who can help you. So this is two examples of experimentation. Innovation is about doing something. It's not an innovation if it just sits in your head. You have to do something with it. You have to produce value. So this was actually a test, this is from about 2 years ago. This was my first class of graduating students. There I am in the back there. 30 women, and we created a store, and it was a test. And we had no idea if this was going to work or not. And the fact of the matter is, there was no way that you could possibly know if it was going to work unless you went and did it. And that was the argument that we made to management. They gave us a couple $1 million. We went and did it. And the upside of 4 billion customers was certainly worth a couple $1 million to try things out. So I could have made a business plan, since I know nothing about Africa and know nothing about living on $3 a day. I could have made up a plan and said, yep, here you go, we're going to make lots of money. I wouldn't have gotten the funding. It just wasn't going to happen. So I had to go, I actually did a lot of ethnography, created a plan and said, this will work, but we have to try it. And I have no way of telling you what your margins are going to be, whether we'll even make money. But 4 billion customers, are you willing to try? And much to my surprise, they bit. So that's one way of experimenting. This is Legos. I'm sure you recognize. We were asked to do a large presentation for the top management. And they wanted to know what we were going to do. So we made a Lego model of what we were going to do. And this was our experiment. Well, can we work? So we moved our people around. Yeah, we'll put things on Brazil here, things on South Africa here. People will walk through. So this is our way of rough prototyping or rapid prototyping or experimenting with the idea by actually trying to make it, even if it is in Legos. And people at first laughed, like, leave it up to business innovations to play with Legos. Great, that's what you do all day. Nice job. And then you start walking them through, like, oh yeah, that's cool. Well, what if we move things here? Well, what if I took this sign and put it here? And suddenly they were engaged in playing with Legos to figure out the problem. So that's what experimentation is all about. And I think you'll find that in the future, things are so complex, you couldn't possibly know the answer unless you experiment. I think as an innovator, self-reflection, understanding who you are, is key, because you can't understand other people unless you understand who you are. So it's kind of this ability to reflect on what am I doing well, what am I not doing well, and be able to manage yourself. And I don't know if you get a lot of that in school, but to me that's probably one of the key skills in growing your career. If you don't know what you want, you don't always have to know exactly what you want, but if you don't even know your direction and you don't understand who you are, and haven't taken the time to kind of reflect on who you are, how can you possibly help other people find value, find growth, find anything if you don't understand who you are? So to me, innovation in design is always about understanding who you are and kind of growing those social and emotional skills. So this is just another example of visualizing. This is about a deck of statistics and numbers and written that we've summarized into one page. So it's the ability to visualize all that data is key to being able to communicate. And the last one is being able to sell. I had no idea that the other 50% of my job would be selling. Honestly, I really don't do any thinking between teaching and selling. In my job, selling ideas is the #1 thing I do. If you can't sell an innovation, it doesn't matter how brilliant the idea is. You have to be able to convince people to do what you need to do. And I don't know if you learn that in school or if that's just something you learn on the job. But I got to tell you, I've been in the workforce now 20 years, and that has been an education every day. Every person is different, and selling big ideas to people who usually think in very linear ways is probably my biggest challenge every day. And every day I keep trying to learn. And that's really all I had. So, question?